Unsolved mysteries. To be honest, I have a love and hate relationship with them, yet they are so tempting that I cannot resist. So here it is, just another one on my channel. The case actually dates back to the year 1975, so it's quite an oldie, and it starts with a couple of kids finding a skeleton in the ground. This creates a lot of theories, a lot of confusion, so I think we just have to start to look into it. Welcome to the case of Faxaskjóli man. Today's story comes from a country that I haven't covered a lot on my channel. I think there was just one case and it was about the traditions of New Year's Eve or so. Officially, it's not really a Scandinavian country, although it has still Scandinavian vibe, and you will understand quite soon. Because a lot of travelers have this country on their to-do list, basically because of the unique and amazing nature that's there. Yes. If you were trying to guess what country is this, you were right. Most probably, it's Iceland. A little bit outside the capital city of Reykjavik, near the village called Faxaskjóli. I hope I pronounced it correctly. If not, I beg your pardon, but that's how I'm going to call it further in my video. Human skeleton was found. And this skeleton created one of the greatest mysteries coming from Iceland. And you and me, together, we're gonna look into this case now. So stay tuned. It was year 1975 and some kids around the age of 11 up to 15 were outside just playing their usual games, like digging some holes in the ground, maybe making sandcastles or playing home. One of my favorite games when I was a kid, playing outside. Anyways, so they were just like digging the ground, doing their kids' stuff, when suddenly they found two large bones. At that moment, they didn't know that actually they came across human skeleton bones. So they brought these bones home to their parents, and parents were like, yeah, nothing special, most probably some large animal like a cow, so they didn't make a lot of fuss about that. A couple of days passed and the same kids were sitting outside, and I believe they were bored and just deciding what to do on that particular day, when one of them remembered the day when they dug out those bones and was like, oh, let's go back to the spot where we dug out those bones previously. Let's dig some more. Maybe we'll find something else there, you know? So they went back to the place and they started digging again. And guess what? They found something more. So the kids continued to dig the spot, and the things that came out of there definitely belonged to a human being. So they dug out some jaw bones, some foot bones, and also one sock. One of the kids ran back to home and told to the grandparents, can you please just come and see what we have found? When the grandparents came to the site, they understood that there is something serious in that spot, and those things definitely belong to human skeleton. So they decided it would be wise to call the police department. There is a little side note about this initial investigation from the police. It actually received a lot of criticism because, according to the people who were there, just showing all of the site and the things that they have discovered, they said that the police were acting very unprofessional. And from my experience, like, I have covered quite a lot of true crime cases and watched a lot of true crime documentaries. If the police messes up the initial stage of the investigation, then all of the investigation is just simply ruined. And here's how they were conducting it. First of all, they didn't restrict the area where the bones were found. So basically, anyone who wanted could just enter this area where they found these things, these remains, and contaminate this site of possible murder, if I can say at this point. So I don't think this was very professional, or maybe they were not so experienced with murder cases, considering that it's Iceland and not so many people live there, and I assume they didn't have a lot of murders happening there during that time. I don't know, but still, it doesn't justify their unprofessionalism. The two investigators assigned to this case were Magnus Egertsson and Haukur Bjarnsson. So Haukur afterwards told the press that he's treating this scene and this case in particular as a murder case. Yeah, considering that you didn't close the area where you're investigating, I'm calling it a complete bullshit. You didn't treat it as a murder case for sure, mister. Another really ridiculous thing about the initial investigation is the fact that the police didn't call any excavators or any other professionals that could help with digging out the stuff that's down there in the ground, and that would help to understand to whom these bones belong and what had happened there. Instead, they just let the kids continue digging and were okay with whatever they dug out from this ground. I don't know, this is very unprofessional for me. It seems like the police were not considering this case very seriously. In fact, one of the investigators, Mr. Hauker, came out with an announcement saying that yes, we really let the kids continue digging it out, and it all happened under our watch, as if it makes it more professional. I don't know. And he also added that they welcomed anything like any bones or any other evidence that the kids dug out from this site. Sounds so stupid. So the police went around a little bit in the village asking some questions to the people. Maybe they saw something happening there recently. But nobody saw anything, nobody told anything, so this was basically a dead end. But the people living in that area were very persistent. They decided that they should probably continue digging because they wanted some answers. So they all came together, they continued digging, some even brought their dogs because they have very sensitive noses, and bingo, they found something more. Now it was a reason again to call the police back because they found in the site even more bones belonging to a human body skeleton. So on the second time when the police returned back, I guess they were learning from the criticism that they received, because from the second wave of investigation, they started to do a really thorough and really serious work with this case. Now they finally brought some professional excavation team to the site. They also finally closed the area for proper investigation, although I think it's too late already. And they also started to do some digging in regards to the history of this area, because something might come up if you know the history of what had happened there in this particular area before. After some proper digging with professionals, they found all of the rest remaining skeleton bones, and there was one particular trait of the skeleton that it had all of the teeth except two. That was the thing that probably would help to kind of find the identity of this person, because only two teeth were missing and the other ones were in place. And also we know that the dental work is like a big thing in regards of understanding the identity of a person that has deceased and, well, has not been recognized yet. Another peculiarity about this body and this skeleton was that there was no trait of any clothes nearby this skeleton. So there was just one sock and that's it. It looked like that was the only thing that this person was wearing when he or she was dug inside the ground. And also nearby the body, they found a couple of really old 45th caliber bullets. During the historical research, the investigators came across some interesting facts. For example, during the Second World War, this area was used by US and British soldiers for their training, and also this area included a shooting range. This area afterwards in the year 51 was evened out with a bulldozer, and they created a project and built some residential houses on this spot. When the investigators found out that this area during the Second World War was a training area and shooting range for some soldiers, they immediately started to think that probably this body was a result of a stray bullet. So somebody was killed basically accidentally during the training. Since the skeleton had only one sock, they speculated that in order to avoid punishment for negligence and to make sure the body is not identified, whoever did this decided to remove the person's uniform and hide it under the ground like that. Actually, this sounds like a legit theory and could be also how it all happened, except it didn't. And there are so many things that kind of contradict this theory. So this body was sent for investigation, and a couple of professors were working really hard to find out anything about this body. And what they came across was that this body belonged to a male. The professors concluded that the time of the death of this particular man would be around 1950, so it would have happened around 20 years before the body was discovered. And they also concluded that the man would be at around 40 years of age or so. And the more things came out from this investigation by the professors, the more interesting it got, and honestly more confusing. The professors also investigated the site where they found the bones, and they came with some really interesting conclusions. They announced that they believed that this body was buried there not very soon after the death, meaning this body had been dead for quite a long while. And only then buried in the site where the kids found the bones around 20 years after. They concluded this because the ground around the body did not show any signs of decay. When someone is buried and the flesh starts to decay, it also leaves traces in the soil. There was none of that. This made the professors think that the man had already decomposed when he was buried there. Needless to say, this completely ruins the theory about the soldiers, about the stray bullet, and them trying to bury their fellow soldier just to escape the punishment. The only thing that matches is that, yes, indeed, the bullets match the ones that were used during that time. The time also more or less, kind of Second World War, 1950s, kind of matches, but all of the rest, no. The investigators started to think that the presence of the bullets was actually circumstantial. Yes, there was historically a shooting range, and these bullets might have been just like something that was left there after the Second World War. This also can be the case that the bullets were there even before the body was buried there. So all in all, at the end, the police discarded the theory of this military accident happening during the time when there was this like soldier training camp slash shooting range in that area. This led them to start to look to another period of this area, namely the time when they were building residential houses on the site. And let me remind you, it happened during the year 1951 and the following years. As I said, they took a bulldozer, evened the land out, and started to build residential houses there. And from like my experience in investigating different true crime and watching documentaries, building site is a very convenient spot where to hide a body. So the police decided to go around the village again, asking some questions more specifically to those people who were still living there from the time when there was this building site present. So maybe they remember something from that time when these houses were built there. So two men came forward. One was Jon Arnason. He grew up in this area, so he basically saw everything happening there. And the second man was Adolf Bjarnsson, who lived there since 1948. And the construction started in the year 1951, so he was basically present when all of this happened. Both of the men recalled an interesting fact. So they remembered that during the construction work that started at around 1951, there was like a round pile of ground or some construction stuff created. It was like a big and round, and it stood approximately 1 meter tall. And as they recall it, it was placed in the same spot where the kids found the bones in the year 1975. Sounds quite suspicious and quite relatable to the case, but I have my fair share of doubts about these witnesses. Like, this happened allegedly 20 years before they're telling about this pile that is 1 meter high, and they say that they remember it standing in the same place where the body was found. Like, I would understand if this pile was like 5 meters tall, 6 meters tall, like something that you would see that's something like standing out, if you know what I mean. But like 1 meter pile 20 years ago in a construction site, I have my doubts that that would be a thing a person would remember so vividly. Like, I don't remember what I was doing 2 weeks ago. And if I had passed a construction site and I saw 1 meter high pile, like 2 weeks ago or a month ago, I don't think that I would remember it. But yeah, well, those both guys were saying that, yeah, when we were there in the 1951, we felt like, yeah, just another construction pile. But now that you find the body there, I'm starting to get suspicious. Maybe that was like a site where the body was already buried. Like, I'm quite sure. Well, that's the thing. I don't know. I would not rely so much on this story. Although, as I said, I had my fair share of doubts about these witnesses, there are still some things that maybe would signify that they were telling truth, that this was possible. More specifically, it's related to the history of the building site. So the investigators look into the documents and papers of how the houses were built in that area, and they understand that although the building work started in 1951, this specific spot where they found the bones was not built upon until 1967. So there was like a lot of time that this spot was empty, and it might indeed also have this pile that the guys remembered from the past. Now, with all of this information, they still didn't know anything about the identity of this man. So they started to look into the cases of missing persons during the time span of 1930s up to 1950s. And they understood that during that time period, 5 men were actually missing in Iceland in that area. And we're gonna look into those so that you know what we're working with. Svavar Bjorarinsson, a 34-year-old single father who worked as electrician. He disappeared from Reykjavik in the spring of 1951. It is known that he traveled to a port near a place called Bragagotu. There he boarded a ship bound to the West Fjords. People witnessed seeing him on the ship on the return trip. However, he did not appear in Reykjavik as he was supposed to. There were theories that he fell over the board accidentally or maybe even intentionally to end his life. The second man was Magnus Gulksson, a man from Reykjavik who was last seen in autumn of 1953. He was also 34 years old and was a former sailor. So this man was unemployed for a while, and his friends recalled that he said that in October of 9th, he wanted to return back to the sea. I suppose it means he wanted to do a sailor job again. But after this date, nobody saw him again. In the year 1955, 3 people found man's clothes lying at the beach. A police was called, and it was found out that the clothes belonged to Magnus Ottosson. He was 45 years old and also from Reykjavik. Last time he was seen a day before the clothes were found. It was assumed, and I quite believe in it, that he had drowned in the sea or ended his life in his way. Or maybe somebody helped him. Pechior Gusmundsson, a 35-year-old man who was reported missing by his mother in the year 1957. She said that she had not received a message from him for 6 months already. He was scarce with communication, however 6 months was too long and suspicious. Pechior was last seen in Reykjavik in December of 1956. It was after his last contact with mom a month ago, telling he is planning to work at the sea. The police checked all the records of the ships who were employing at that time, but did not find Pechior's name there, so he must have been on the ground in the city. There was nothing about these previously mentioned men that the police could link to the skeleton that they found there. So basically, after a while, they officially announced they are not even considering 4 of these men as someone that would be related to this case. But as I mentioned, during the time span from 1930s up to 1950s, there are 5 men missing, and I only described 4 of them. So the 5th one, according to the investigators, was the most likely candidate for this body and also a possible murder. His name was Sveinborn Jakobsson. He was a 46-year-old fisherman who went missing in the year 1930 when he went out to visit his daughter. But there are some things about this missing man that do not really match with this skeleton. First of all, he went missing in the year 1930, but according to the university professors from Reykjavik, this person to whom belongs this skeleton died during the time of 1950s. Okay, yeah, there's also an option that somebody held him captive or he disappeared willingly from 1930s and then he died in the 1950s when somebody killed him. That's also an option. But there's even more things that do not really match with this Jakobsen. So Jakobsen's daughter, when she heard that her missing father is actually being considered as the most likely candidate for the skeleton that they have found, she came forward and reminded them that her father actually had fake teeth. And remember, the skeleton has all the teeth except for 2. So I don't think Jakobsen is the skeleton in the ground. And speaking about teeth, we all know that dental records help a lot to identify unidentified bodies. In this case, there were no matches, so it was like a dead end. And I'm not sure if they still have the skeleton and the teeth. We will talk about that a little bit further in the video, but I do know that there is like modern technology that can help to get some answers about the skeleton, even if you don't have any dental matches. Like, remember, is the woman case where they analyzed the teeth and they could find out from which region this person is coming and what kind of lifestyle this person had? Like, if they would do the same with the Faxaskjóli man, they would get at least some answers to the questions and also about the identity of this person. Also, what is quite interesting, like nobody even attempted to create like facial reconstruction of this like skull. That would be a thing that also would help quite a lot to recognize this man if this person had lived in the area or visited in that area. None of that was done. And after all of this that I told you, there were no public statements, no new articles, no new leads, no theories, no announcements made anymore. So basically everything just went silent like that. And the saddest thing, as far as I understand, is that the skeleton has not been preserved up to nowadays. I mean, there's a controversial information out there, so you cannot really tell, but there's a high possibility that it has not been preserved. Some sources say that the skeleton was buried again, like with a respectful ceremony in a cemetery. Other sources, I read some blogger who said that he found this information from some kind of Icelandic source, that there is a high possibility that this skeleton was actually cremated. So I don't know, like all of these theories are unofficial and I couldn't find like the official information about what really happened to the skeleton afterwards. Interestingly enough, the police never really announced the real cause of death of this person. And this seems very odd to me. Like, there were bullets around the body. They, of course, figured out that this would not be related to the soldier training area during the Second World War, but maybe this person was shot anyways. Were there any like signs on the skeleton that this person was shot? Maybe this person was stabbed, maybe poisoned. Maybe this person died from natural, let's say, causes, or maybe it was a disease that took away his life. We don't know anything. There were no additional information about the cause of the death. However, there are some additional theories circulating around the internet, and one of them also sounds quite believable. Namely, it's a theory that this person certainly was a foreigner, and this is why nobody could recognize or identify it. Let me explain. The entire population of Iceland in 1975 was 216,695 people. That is not the population of the capital. It was the population of the entire country. And that number was likely lower in the 50s when the man was actually killed. What I'm saying is that with this population, everybody knows everyone, or knows a friend, or is related, or knows a relative of somebody. Like, if somebody goes missing or dies, it is easy to identify because, like, you would know. Like, there's not so many people to, like, refer to, right? So, and also it was concluded that during that time in that area, only 5 men were missing, and we already established that their stories do not really match with the story of the skeleton. So I think it's quite fair to conclude also that this person is a foreigner. And remember, historically, in the area during the Second World War, a lot of British and US soldiers were there for the training, for the military training. So maybe one of those guys decided to escape and stuck around up until 1950s when something happened and he was buried there. I don't know, like if I would be an investigator, I would probably also look into that theory. And then again, if this is the case, how did this soldier then manage to stay undetected in an area where everybody knows everyone? This leaves us with a great mystery. Who was this man? How did he die? Why and how someone managed to hide it in the ground in a populated area? One of the investigators came forward and stated that he is sure that this was a murder and someone tried to hide the body there. Well, I kinda agree, but too many questions still remain. And this is it, my friends. This is the case of the mystery skeleton of Faxaskjóli village. It makes me crazy that we don't have the solution. We don't have any idea of the identity of this man who was buried there. And I think that if we had the remains of the skeleton right now and we could use the technologies that we have now, we could probably get some answers. But yeah, we don't know if even this skeleton still exists somewhere, which is a shame, right? Let me know, guys, what are you thinking about this case? What are your thoughts and theories about who is this man, how this would have happened? And I would be very happy to see all your thoughts down there in the comments section. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Apart from that, thank you for watching and spending some time with me. And I'm just reminding that you should also probably subscribe to my channel. Also press the notification bell in order to stay updated with all the videos that I'm posting here. So do appreciate my dedication with your likes. Share this video with everyone who would also be interested in listening to this story or any other story on my channel. That being said, I think I'm gonna stop talking. Enjoy your day. See you next time.